Hello and welcome to the She Got Lucky podcast. This is not your host, the beautiful Alicia. This is actually Annelise McCarthy, and I'm here today removing all titles of the work that I do. I'm actually just here as a dear friend, and I'm here for support for my darling Alicia. We're going to be having a conversation today that I think personally is going to be very inspiring for a lot of people, because we're going to be really unveiling the behind the scenes of running a business. And I want to start by acknowledging this will be a very vulnerable episode for Leash, and I feel very honoured to be here to facilitate this with her. And I think just as a listener, I'm already nervous, but I think what we're about to experience on this podcast episode is such a beautiful demonstration of authentic leadership. And I'm really excited to have this conversation with you, darling. And I'm excited for the learnings I think that your audience is going to be taking away from it here. So starting with the concept of how in business, in life, nothing goes perfectly, you are without a doubt one of the most ambitious businesswomen that I know. You're always working on something new. You're always building. You're always creating. It's one of the things I love about you, but I can also imagine that there is another side to that world where sometimes things don't look as shiny as they may appear online. What has that kind of balancing act been like for you? I guess starting off the conversation with being the expert that you are and the social media presence that you do have. Do you feel a pressure with needing things to always look a certain way or appear a certain way?
Yeah, it's really tough because I have had this roller coaster of learning, in a sense, of what to share online and what not to share online, how to be authentic online, but still how to be an authority online. And it's one of the reasons why it's been taking a bit of time to come to the point where we're sitting down today, because I wanted to find a way that this wasn't just say, let me tell you about my life, let's do a dear diary. I wanted this to be of value. I wanted to help other women so that they don't experience what I've experienced in this journey. I want them to take away lessons, and I want them to be incredibly aware of these things that I have learned. One of the biggest things is, yes, it's incredible to be out in front and we hear the word trailblazer and setting the path, creating the path. But often with that, the path can get incredibly rocky and it takes you in places that you didn't expect, or it doesn't just go, oh, this path is really easy and really smooth and really beautiful. There's a rainbow, there's gold, there's all this stuff. And so 3 years ago now, I decided to follow a passion of mine. And I entered it with this is going to be a passion project. I've already got my business. This is going to be a passion project where I can bring the joy and the lessons that I've learned about burning myself out and give it back to the women that I work with every day. I thought it was going to be something that was just passion, that would just fill up my cup and help others fill up theirs. And I've realized that it's been one of my biggest and hardest tests in business so far.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And before we kind of dive into those tests and challenges, I firstly want to acknowledge something you've always really inspired me with, Leash, is finding the joy in the work that you do and finding the fun. And I think the fact that you have been willing to pursue a side project or a passion project, we can call it, on top of the work that you do, I think firstly is a very big testament to the businesswoman that you are. But as well, you've always been a person of service, and you're very deeply conscientious of how you're constantly contributing and adding value. In hindsight now, with the lessons that you've learned, before we kind of dive into the nitty-gritty of it, if you had your time over with this certain project, would you choose to have still done it and still pursue it?
100%, I'm going to say yes. Because otherwise I would have been sitting there being like, would have been the best idea ever. I should have done that. That would have been brilliant. And if I hadn't have taken the leap and just done it, then I wouldn't be able to, I wouldn't be sitting here with the wisdom, the knowledge that I have now. Unfortunately, it took a lot from me to get here, but I would much prefer that than to have been in the place of like sitting here today, or not sitting here, but being like, should have done that. Someone else has done that. Like I truly, truly believe. I was recently at an event where they were talking about we're constantly getting downloads from whatever you believe in, whatever higher power you believe in, but we're constantly getting downloads and other people are getting similar downloads. It's taking action on ideas when they happen is so important. And I definitely don't regret taking action on it. I still kind of wish it had have taken it differently.
Of course. And I also want to acknowledge you said, taking action on ideas. It actually takes courage because anybody can sit on an idea for a long time, but actually taking action to implement that, I think is incredibly courageous. And I think if there's anything to take away just from the snippet you said there, is that you can take action knowing full bloody well it could fail, knowing full well the risks involved, knowing that it actually could just all go to shit.
Yeah.
And that's part of it. That's the risk that you take. You mentioned just before that it cost you so much.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that for me? Are we talking financially, energetically? What was the consequence of that investment for you?
So shall we dive into?
I think we should. If you've made the decision to pull the plug on something that has been very near and dear to your heart, and today we're unveiling the story of what that is and why you've made the decision to do that. Would you like to share with everybody the decision that you've made?
So I have come to the decision to not continue with my dear business full and filled. And it's been really hard because I don't like to feel like no one likes to feel like a failure. And I'm so proud. I'm so proud of the product. I'm so proud of the business. I didn't cut corners. I put everything into this in one way. But realistically, I'm at the point now where looking at the end game, it just doesn't make sense. So I started this business because I was so inspired by the women I was working with in the product space. And I didn't want to just come up with a product for the sake of coming up with a product. But every day I had my iced coffees and I had my big cups of water. And I didn't like the little ones. I liked the big ones because then you don't constantly fill it up. And so little bit by little bit, I sort of came to this idea of like, what if we had glasses that weren't just glasses, but they were this idea of filling up your cup every day? And, these really beautiful glasses, they made perfect gifts for your friends. They made perfect gifts for you. And so I came up with this idea, and it was all about like the intention behind it is filling up your cup before you fill up others. And I said to myself, this is a passion project. I've been so fortunate in building these businesses that have built me great wealth, and I've got the money there. And to be able to create something like this, it's not about, I want to create this 7-figure business. It was about, let's have some fun, let's learn, let's create. If I sell them and then I shut it down, cool, that's done. But let's just create. No pressure, I told myself, which is definitely, when you put in a big investment into something, you put a lot of care and love and time and effort into something, there's of course going to be pressure in some sense.
Sure.
Because I was already running 2 businesses, I knew I couldn't give it the time to go and find people, go and find the companies, the suppliers, the warehouse, everything like this. So I went and approached a middleman company in Melbourne who I'd heard quite good things from. And I was hiring them to pretty much source the contacts, source the locations, source all the details, and pretty much help me bring my dream product together. Initially, it was about $10,000 up front. Okay, so that was fine. There was a few packages, and I was sort of like, why would I settle for the lowest one? Like, I am all in on this. I want this product to get the full support. Everything made sense, because I was going about this, I thought, in a smart way. I was going about in the sense that I'd heard horrible stories where if you are working with overseas suppliers, then they may have a contract in a different language and there may be loopholes. And that's how some of these product businesses have the same product, but it's just a different label on it. It's because, one company's gone to them with this idea and then there's been this loophole, and then now they've got this product that they can just white label. So I was like, right, I'm going to do this the right way. I'm going to go people who deal with these people all the time, find the best contracts, find the best everything. I am a very trusting person, and it just didn't work out the way I planned. I wanted to get really high quality products. It was a custom product as well, because these sort of glasses, there's ones out there, but they're much smaller. And I had things. I was like, it has to be dishwashable. It has to be bigger. It has to be high quality. It has to be this. If I'm going to do this product, it needs to meet these standards.
And can I just say, as someone who uses the glasses, every single morning, I'm fucking obsessed. I love it. And you can tell it's such high quality, and it's beautiful. So before, I think just an invitation here, before we essentially nitpick the issues, which I know is part of the episode, I also want to acknowledge the beauty of what you have created. And as a consumer of your passion project, it's beautiful. And you can tell that there's been so much intentional thought and care that's also gone into it.
Yeah, it was about 3 years ago that I started this. And so naively, I was like, I need to put this together, and by Christmas that year, I'm going to have this product out there. Oh boy. And, I built 2 service businesses and with digital products. And to go down this side that was so unknown, I thought I was doing it the smart way of getting professionals, getting experts to be the ones to help lead me. So I hired a designer, and I actually paid the designer, did the work. And when I saw what she came back with, she's incredible. She wasn't the right designer for the job. So that was about $4,000 that I sort of put towards this designer, right?
Wow.
And
so at the moment, we're at $14,000.
We're at 14 currently, right? And we are literally barely started.
Barely started.
14,000. And so what she came back with, it just felt two-dimensional. It just felt like you had this vision and someone had sort of put their idea down and you're like, you don't get it. If this is what you come up with, I didn't even want to start this business. It didn't get me excited. And so straight away, I was getting pressure from the sourcing company that I had hired to, we need all these things finalized. We need all these things finalized in order to proceed. Otherwise, it's going to be extra costs. I straight away went to a friend of mine who I'd connected with, and she is one of the leading designers in the world. And I was like, right, we're just going to do it straight away. Tell me the costs. How quickly can we do this? I know that you're looked hard. And she was incredible. Steve from Pink Pony, she literally took me under. She was like, that's fine. We're going to do this well. And she was the designer. So that was another $7,000 and a bit thousand to work with her. And I was like, done. Like, already I can see that you get the vision. I know that this is going to be high quality. I need this to be high quality. This is going to be...
It's luxury.
It's luxury.
Yep.
And the biggest thing as well is I said, I always love the experience of a product. The experience of a service is one thing. And I found there's so many lessons in surprising and delighting. When you're a service-based business, if you can surprise and delight your clients, you're going to have a much higher retention with your clients. With products, if you can surprise and delight, same thing. So that's why I wanted the unboxing to be an experience. So she straight away got it, and we started building out these ideas, and everything came to life so quickly. And it got me so much more excited about this project. So we got those off, and we started trying to figure out all the bits and pieces. I got the first round of samples. So in order to get the first round of samples, I think it was about $1,000 for 5 glasses. So at $22,000, we've got 5 glasses. I was like, these are the most expensive glasses.
Wow.
And they were very far from being ready. It felt cheap because the options that I had been given, and this comes back to the people pleaser. I'd been given, okay, this is what you can do. This is what you can do. And I didn't want to I'd hired this middleman, and I don't want to push too far. I didn't want to ask for too much. You want to be a hassle. I wanted to be a good client.
Isn't that interesting? Can we touch on that for a second? Because I feel like how interesting that you are a business owner and you've gone into what essentially is almost like a startup business, creating your own product. You have made an investment with them. 10 grand is a meaty investment. Like to anybody, that's, 10 grand is 10 grand. Yet to still have the hesitation about asking for the service from them to be provided in the way that you want it to, and to have the specifications that you'd require. I think it's really telling as well. Maybe, yes, people pleasing, but I think it's also a product of perhaps not wanting to be, when we are coaches, you are a coach, I am a coach, our whole nature is to accommodate and to provide. And I'm just kind of relaying my own experience here from what you've shared, but I know that I don't want to seem an imposition, and I don't want to, insert my own opinion based on how somebody else does their zone of genius, because it's their zone of genius.
Yeah.
So I just think that that's really interesting. Did you find as well, this may be relevant, this may not, but I think the question lingers and it's worth exploring, the dynamic there of working with a male distribution company and being a woman requesting those services, did that impact the dynamic at all?
Yes. So, and what I missed out on as well was because this is my third business and I had already learned so much from the first two. So when I was diving in, I was like, right, we are going to go the right way. Before I even signed with this middle company, the sourcing company, I hired a lawyer and I hired her to go through the contract.
So it's more money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I hired to have full and filled instantly set up for company, not just a business name. I was like, okay, it's going to be done right. I need it to be under a company so that it's not all on me if anything happened. I straight away, we're going to set it up for, for tax, everything like that. And straight away, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't about to sign in and get into bed with people who were doing something because they clearly knew I wasn't very aware of this world. So that's why I got my lawyer straight away onto it.
You didn't want to be taken advantage of.
I didn't want to be taken advantage of, which is hilarious now. But so I thought I'd done everything right. Anyway, so I wasn't happy with the product. But I also...
sorry, just quickly, what are your rights there as somebody who is creating a product? Do you have an entitlement to say, hey, this isn't up to par, you need to fix it? Like, what were your parameters?
So it was interesting because every time I sort of went back with, I don't really like this, there was almost like if this project goes on for too long, there'll be extra costs.
Working with the timeline, essentially.
And I was also aware that for this business, they don't make money from signing on people. They make money on every order I make. So they get, in additional to that amount up front, every time I order, extra 10% of the amount of my order, I pay to them. And so that's where they make their money. So the longer these projects drag on, the less likely they're going to get to that final phase of production. And that's why they really don't want that to happen.
Thank you for explaining that to me, because I don't work in the product business and I've never been behind the scenes. So I'm just conscientious of people who might be listening who don't know the behind the scenes of it. That's really good to know.
And especially, even for someone listening who may have a product or may have created a product business or whatever, who've gone down this route where I'm not doing all the sourcing, I'm not direct to them. There's this person in the middle. It's where there's become lots of issues. So I had these first samples. I was so freaking excited. I remember opening them. I was so excited, but they just weren't right. The lids had like plastic on them and I was like, what? Like instantly cheapened. So started searching and this idea, and you may have felt it at some point. It feels like this pressure to just decide and you're not happy. And it's like, I don't want to just sit and constantly try and find a perfect option. And it's also hard because I had been working so hard on letting go of the perfectionist of me. But this is a product that I am selling for a higher price and I needed it to be perfect. Like, how do you find the balance between not being a perfectionist, but this is a product and the product needs to be perfect for the person who's buying it? So this period was really hard because it was constantly more work with the designer, more work with the sourcing company to then figure out. I decided, right, it needs to be completely different. I don't want this cheap plastic thing. I need it to have a hole and I need the straw to be through it. I need it to still be splash proof. Anyway, what I wanted, what I have today, they needed to find a completely different company to do this. They said, who we've currently signed on for cannot do this.
Oh, wow.
You are going down a slightly, and it feels silly because it's like, okay, glasses, like a warehouse, a supplier that can custom build these glasses. Okay, that feels simple. But they're like, no, you're now no longer working with the silicon parts, these plastic bits, you're working with this instead. So instantly there was extra costs because I now needed to find another company that would do custom molds of my glasses with this type of lid. So they're like, you can continue as planned or there'll be more costs to go with another one. So I think that quite quickly there was an extra $10,000 to find because the sourcing company had to go find. So that was more work for them. Then there was to end that contract with this company that had just done my samples and to find another one for them to now do a custom mold, which again, more money because they have to create it.
Where are we in the timeline now? How soon after from conception are we speaking?
About a year.
Wow. Okay. So the first year, from what I can understand, is about 33 grand just in the logistics of setting up this company.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it'd be about 40 by this point.
Yeah.
And we haven't even done the first order. We haven't even, all the actual setup of the website, everything that's not even started yet.
Wow. So this is purely behind the scenes. You hadn't launched anything yet. Nobody knew about it.
And it's tough because I was looking at, okay, but I have this idea for this product and this is sort of, if I can get the product at this amount to create, then I sell it for this, we'll still be out even. It's fine. Like we'll still be on top. And so I was still basing this all off. It's fine because if this goes out like this, if we sell at least this amount, we're still on top. If we sell at least this, like I was just still basing on everything to happen as I'd planned, which is where it all fell down because months went on, we're still going back and forth, we're finalizing things, I'm getting the designer to do things. The designer is doing me a solid because she's doing extra work for me, getting things to the point I love. I'm feeling more pressure from the sourcing company. And I get an email from the sourcing company saying that they're changing the way they do things. And now I'm going to be moved on to a monthly retainer. And so in addition to that amount that I paid up front, every month now, I don't go to production. I'm going to be paying a couple $1,000s per month. This changed everything because all of a sudden this pressure that I felt because I was taking a little bit longer, a lot longer than planned.
Which, look, reasonably, when you're putting together a product that you want to be proud of, and I don't think it's a bad thing to have high standards when you're executing a product that you want people to enjoy. But we're now discussing, which I guess has become very evident, the cost of creating a high product. It extends the timeline, and now you're paying for that timeline.
Yes, and if I had gone direct, I think it would have been a very different scenario for so many reasons.
Can you explain what you mean when you say direct?
Rather than going through a sourcing company.
Right.
Because everything I communicate is then being communicated through someone else.
Yes, okay, there's a middleman.
So many things that I don't know whether it's the sourcing company just looking for opportunities to make more. There's so many things that I look back and I wonder what was the actual reasoning behind it? What's actually happened here?
Yeah. You don't have as much control.
So this is where I got to experience the CEOs of this sourcing company. I was naturally quite unimpressed. I spoke to my lawyer again because I had signed a contract that said this would be the amount until we get to the production. And so I was naturally unimpressed, and I'd got an invoice. It wasn't a case of this is what's happening moving forward. I'd already got an invoice for my first month of you're not a production, so we're going to be charging you every month to continue until you get there.
Wow.
And so I spoke to one of the CEOs, and I got, you have another little business or something, don't you? And so it was on a phone call, and it'd been hard to get that phone call. When I finally did get on the phone, there was instantly this comment of, well, you've got another little business or something, don't you?
Wow.
And that was the first time I've ever experienced sort of that in it myself before. And I said, yes, I have another business and I have employees. And they said, well, I'm sure you can have a bit of compassion then I'm sure you can have a bit of empathy for the fact that we have to pay and cost of living has gone up and all this. It's just, so what am I supposed to be paying more because the costs of everything have gone up and now you're changing the contract and you're changing. So safe to say that conversation didn't go down well.
Can I ask before we move on from that conversation, because the comment that was made to you, I think there are a lot of people that are listening to this who have experienced that comment before. Your little business on the side. Oh yeah, they're like little side hustle that you're doing. I was just a few, I guess, leading questions, if I may, just about that comment, because I'm really curious to understand. Firstly, how did it make you feel in that moment?
My blood was boiling.
Yeah.
My blood was boiling.
Yeah.
What I have to say and the power of the impact that I had built with incredible women worldwide. I was like, that's not little.
Yes.
That's not little. And in that moment straight away, I was like, a part of me wanted to go onto social straight away. These people who are getting awarded, seriously, I was like, they're getting awarded. They're getting business awards.
Yeah, well.
All sorts of awards. I had all these realizations of who I'd gotten to bed with.
And I think it's interesting because I myself have experienced comments like that. And I'm a big believer of giving people the benefit of the doubt. And I think that a lot of people can say things out of conscious incompetence as opposed to conscious competence. And it's not directly cruel or like intentionally cruel. However, I do think it says a lot about women, especially who choose to create these companies or, you know, deliver these products or services, to belittle it to something as small as that or insignificant as that. Did it make you doubt?
Actually, it gave me more fire. It gave me more fire. I didn't necessarily want the fire to continue with them.
Yes.
But I was also like, I'm in way too deep.
You were fired up. Yeah.
I was in way too deep because the other thing that I was aware of was in my contract, I wasn't allowed to leave them for 24 months after my first order. So anytime I wanted to order more products, wanted to develop the line, wanted to do anything, if I wanted to do it with the company who had my custom build, who had all my packaging, everything, I had to go through them. I had to give them 10%. I had to now do this monthly payout, you know, and what really I really had to find a way to control myself during this call was he wasn't even aware of what my product was. He didn't know anything about it. And as someone who deals with clients, if I was to get on a call with someone, I don't know, maybe this is just me, but if I was to get on a call with a client and to have a conversation like this, I would take 5 minutes to look into the client, look into what had been happening, look into what the product they were building was about.
100%.
And so straight away, like these little things were just screaming.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it really is, you put it perfectly. I think it is the little difference that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
I don't think that's just you. I think there's a lot of people who would put a lot of intentionality into how they curate their client experience and their, you know, customer journey. But I also think there's something to be said for big businesses who have a lot of clientele. And if anything, there's such a beautiful learning here that the more that you expand and the more people that you have that you're looking after or that you're on your register or you're providing for, whatever it might be, when we lose the human touch, when we lose that personal connection, you literally lose a client.
Yeah.
And that's what you've experienced.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was really at this point where like, this isn't why I started this. This isn't why to deal with people like this. It wasn't a case of I just have to deal with them until I get through this. These are the people I had trusted. These are the people who I was building this business with. They benefit. If this business grew, they benefited. So it just felt disgust. Like all of a sudden, I just started to look at everything differently there. But I tried to keep reminding myself that the person who was actually assigned to me, my product manager, was really good. And I just tried to focus on that. So we continued. We ended up having 3 rounds of samples, 3 rounds of, are you happy with this? And every time it's about $1,000 to get these 5 glasses sent to me. So by the 3rd, I was happy. We were good. I had the lid that I was happy with. It was splash proof. It was dishwashed. Like everything was good. The final little touches on the packaging, but otherwise we were all good. Again, I had pushed back on this monthly amount. I was like, I'm not paying this. We signed that contract and I spoke to my lawyer and my lawyer said, this is what we'd signed for. They can't now decide that this is how the company's going to move. If you signed on as a new client now, okay. But they've decided to change the way because they haven't realized it's profitable. And so now they're doing a flip on you. So I never paid those amounts. They never came back at me other than the comments of, I'd hope that you'd have empathy. I'd hope that you'd understand as a business owner yourself with employees. So I got my final samples. I was happy with that. By this point, we had started to book in dates, in a sense, because I had to get my website designer. I had to book launch dates. I wanted to get this out before Christmas. This was early 2023, and I wanted this to be out before Christmas 2023. So we started to lock in dates. Cool, no worries. We're going to do the first order. And that was the other big, big lesson that I realized now that I wish I had have known earlier was in order to work with this company, they had minimums. They had certain minimum quantities that I needed to say I was going to order. And everyone I've spoken to since who has got leading e-commerce businesses today, they didn't start with these big orders. They're like, yeah, I started with, 20 of this product and 20 of this product. And then I sold those out and then I got a bit more each time. And for many reasons, because I was aware of what this sourcing company's minimums were, there was definitely a part of me that wanted to prove myself. Like, yes, I'm worthy of being with you guys.
Right. Yeah.
Especially after these comments, even more so. In order to have this middle person, I was like, if I have to be the one to go out and find these people, it will take so much longer. I'll take away from my other businesses, everything. It just wouldn't work. I need these guys, and this is their minimum number.
So for somebody listening then, with that being your biggest learning, what learning can they take from that? What advice would you give them?
I think looking back, I was a little bit too delusional.
A little bit too delulu?
I was a little bit too delulu on many fronts. And that's been my superpower in business in other areas. But in this area, in the building a product business where there is so many logistics.
Yes, right.
This really was not helping me.
So that's a whole new world for you, wasn't it? You've never done this before.
Yeah.
You hadn't been trained. You hadn't, this was a whole new avenue and realm of business for you to step into.
Yeah. Yeah. It really all just, it was this icky feeling, but we're going to continue. We're going to persist through it. We're going to persist through the hard times, push through the uncomfortable. So I was like, we're going to see this through. I've been sharing the journey. I've been sharing the process. And it's funny because I said from the very get-go, this is what I was going to do. I was going to share more of the process. And I look back now and I didn't share as much as I wanted to. And a part of me wonders if there was that 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Is this actually going to work? Concern of the perception.
Yeah. Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
Because I feel like, firstly, when you share something with the public, there's public accountability and there's a pressure of getting a certain expectation or delivery on something. Did you feel that when you were sharing?
Yes. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. And I was also at this state and I just spoke about this in front of 400 women live,
which is a massive freaking achievement. And I'm so fucking proud of you.
Thank you. I own the fact that the quote that has possibly resonated with me the most so far in my business journey is by Ratan Tata. Fast success builds ego. Slow success builds character.
Ooh, that's juicy.
We all want fast success. We all want it to be fast. But the slow success is actually the one that builds character. And this was at a time where my ego was definitely big. And hearing these comments from these men really sort of challenged that ego in them.
Yeah. Self-aware queens. We're self-aware.
I had definitely, built this ego around the numbers. I was constantly going viral. I was constantly growing. I was building this massive following.
Yeah.
I had this really hot audience. Every time I posted, every time I shared a product, people would jump on it. People would go wild over it. Everything was good. So how could anything not go well?
Queens, this is part 1 of this 2-part episode. 3.5 years, you try fitting that into a 30, 40-minute podcast episode. So we've broken it into 2 parts. This is all setting the scene for the worst, which is about to come. Okay, this is season 2 of the She Got Lucky podcast. I am very nervous, but I also can't wait for you to hear what happens next. So if you're not already, be sure to follow the She Got Lucky podcast, and Annelise and I will be back for part 2 of this special episode.